welcome to Sleeping Cerberus ASMR. And today I thought we would take a look at my Nintendo DS collection. So, first up, we have new Super Mario Bros. And this is the first in the new Super Mario Brothers series of games. So, at the time, the new labeling was actually very accurate. And I feel like a lot of people actually think that this new Super Mario Brothers game is one of the best in the new Super Mario Brothers franchise. Along with the standard 2D gameplay, you also had these awesome mini games that they included, which was super fun. So this game introduced the Mega Mushroom that let you just plow through and break, pipes and stuff. So that was really cool. Something you hadn't been able to do before. I really feel like the Mega Mushroom should make a return. It's super fun to use. There was a rumor a little while ago that Nintendo was going to put this in a compilation of games, and I think that would have been a great idea, so hopefully that still happens one day, because this is a super fun game that's, kind of trapped here. So, getting a nice remake or an import collection would be super fun. Second up, we have Kirby Canvas Curse. So this was a bit of a different type of Kirby game where you would use your stylus and draw the path that Kirby would roll around on. I know this was a little divisive because it was so different and it took a little while to get used to the controls, but I actually did enjoy Canvas Curse. And the sequel on the Wii U was also a game that I enjoyed. Again, this follows the trend of Kirby always being angry on the US box art. It's like, it's okay, we still like you, Kirby, even if you don't have to be angry all the time. Next up we have Trace Memory. This is a type of puzzle adventure game. This is one that I have not finished, and looking back through my collection, I actually want to go back and finish this game. I know they included this in a collection on the Switch, but I still think that this is a really fun way to play this game. So, yeah, definitely one I want to get back into and try to finish it, or probably actually just start over and replay this game. I think that would be fun. Okay, we're getting into some really amazing games here. So, this is Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow. DS. And this was my first introduction to the Castlevania series, and this game vibed with me so well. This is just totally my type of gameplay, just exploring and getting abilities and using the monsters. It was such a fun gameplay loop for me. This is included in a PC port collection that you can get on Steam, but the game pretty much looks the same, so I think this would be a great game to have a true remake, redraw the sprites and everything, because this is such a great game. And I'm pretty sure this also had some, they had a little animated cutscene in the beginning, which was pretty cool to see on the DS. Yeah, this is such a great game. One of my favorites on the DS. And then next up we have another amazing game. This is Pokemon Platinum, and I loved Pokemon growing up. The first and second generation, I played just an insane amount of hours, and then for whatever reason, I fell out of Pokemon for a little while, and I picked up Platinum version. So this was my first Pokemon game since Gold and Silver, and I just fell in love with it all over again. I picked the water starter, this penguin, so cute, and then the evolution being water steel, that was so cool to me. So yeah, water starter all the way in this gen. So yeah, I definitely credit Pokemon Platinum for getting me back into the franchise. And it was super fun because there was, a bunch of Pokemon from, the third generation that they're all new to me, so I didn't play Ruby or Sapphire or Emerald, so there was even more Pokemon that were new to me, so that was super fun to get to experience that many new Pokemon. I really wish Nintendo would, make some of these games easier to play, because I think tracking down some of the original of these older Pokemon games are just so expensive. I really regret not being able to get the remakes of Gen 2 on on the DS. Those games are so expensive. Soul Silver, I mean, I love the way those games looked, and I really wish I would have been able to get those when they were new. But, oh well, I mean, I still have Pokemon Platinum, so that's pretty awesome. Here we have Mario Party DS. I went through a little phase where I wanted to track down and play a whole bunch of the Mario Party games. And so I picked this one up while I was doing that. I don't remember playing this too much, but still having a closer to a full Mario Party game in your pocket at the time was amazing. I know they did a Mario Party Advance, but it wasn't quite the same, so this was pretty cool at the time. In the palm of your hand, this was pretty fun. Pretty fun idea. This is Zookeeper. So typically I don't play a ton of puzzle games, but every once in a while there's going to be a game that really vibes with me, and this is one of them. We have another puzzle game that I think is even better that we're going to get to later in this video, but Zookeeper was an early DS game that I got. So pretty straightforward match game, but still, with someone like me who didn't play a lot of these games, and at the time it wasn't like you had a million different match games on your phone or anything like that, so this was still a really fun way to play these type of match games. Okay, next pile. This is a big one. We have Super Mario 64 DS. So this is essentially, I think I would call it maybe an enhanced port, because they added content to the DS version, and you had more playable characters that each had different abilities. And they added, so there's now 150 power stars in this one, and they added some, small environments, but still one that was inspired by Mario Sunshine, so that was really cool to me. And then again, including a ton of mini games that I feel like Nintendo really doesn't do that anymore, where in addition to the game there's just like a ton of additional games that you can play. So yeah, definitely a super fun way to play Mario 64 on the go. I know the challenges in this game were really the camera and the controls, because you didn't have that stick, the original DS didn't have an analog stick, so it was definitely a steep learning curve. actually playing the Switch port of Mario 64 right now, and it's pretty funny because I am having the same difficulties as I did when I was playing this, even though I'm playing it on a real controller. I think as I have less time to, get good at games and get used to the controls, it's actually pretty hard for me to control Mario 64, which is pretty funny. I did get all of the stars in this one, but in the Switch game, yeah, I'm struggling, I'll be honest. And I think Mario 64 is so ripe for a true remake, and they could even, have this version of the game included as well. And I think if you simply had some other control options and camera options, you could still keep the classic control options for the people who prefer that, but I think you could really make Mario 64 accessible to a lot more people and make it easier to play, so I definitely would want Nintendo to do something like that. I think it'd be awesome. Okay, we have another Kirby game now. This is Kirby Mass Attack. And the gimmick in this Kirby game is basically to gather a mob of Kirby characters, then lead them on a crazy adventure where nothing can stand in your way. So this was pretty fun. I don't know if I finished this one. Normally I always finish Kirby games, but I don't know if I finished this one, but I love Kirby, so I definitely had to try this out. Kirby is a franchise where Nintendo was much more likely to try unique gameplay styles and really, mix things up. Just like Canvas Curse, it may not have been for everybody, but it certainly was different. Next up we have Super Scribblenauts. So if you're unfamiliar with this game or this series, basically it would allow you to write in an object on the screen and have it appear in the game, which that just blew my mind. I don't know if I was creative enough to really get the best out of it, because I feel like you just have something that is simple and works. I think like jetpack is one you probably want to use a lot because it allows you to fly around. But I mean, what a fun idea to just get in and mess around with it. I think the biggest thing for me is just too lazy to write stuff out. But this is still a super fun type of experience that's quite different. Next up we have Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. Man, they really have a lot of white space on this. They could have made it a little bit more colorful, but don't let the cover fool you, because this is a super great game where you actually control Mario and Luigi but also Bowser. So you play Bowser in the overworld, and then Mario and Luigi are actually inside of Bowser's body. I think this is definitely a fan favorite for the Mario and Luigi series. This is a really good one. They did a port on the 3DS, and it was kind of unnecessary. So if you had the original, there wasn't really a reason for you to buy that version. I was one of the silly people who bought it anyways, but you didn't need to. This game holds up just great as it is, and you can play it on a 3DS, so no reason to buy the 3DS version. So whatever is more available would be the one I would get. Okay, this is the other puzzle game that I was talking about. This is Picross 3D. Over 350 brain teasers. And then on the back they say over 365, so it's more than 350, it's more than 365. But anyways, this is a game where essentially you have this cube and the numbers indicate how many to keep. And so it's a little bit of like a process of elimination to chip away at the outside, and then you'll reveal what was inside. So like a cell phone or a dog or a dolphin. So yeah, even if you don't like puzzle games a whole lot, this was still super fun to me. So definitely one that I would recommend, even if puzzles normally aren't your jam. Who's that Pokemon? It's Pikachu. Okay. Moving on. This is Feel the Magic, which I think this was a launch title. And it was kind of like a risque type of game, or at least it looked like it. Rated teen. But it was basically just a series of mini games, if I remember correctly. There was certainly a lot of mini-game collections and just companies that were experimenting with the touchscreen and the dual screens. It was definitely a time for experimentation. Rub, touch, shout, and blow to control the game. So they're kind of having fun with some of the descriptors here. But yeah, definitely a unique game at the time, and certainly one that was unusual for the DS. Alright, so this might be the game on the DS that I've spent the most time on. So I fell in love with Harvest Moon on the GBA, and then discovered Rune Factory, which is kind of like an offshoot of Harvest Moon, where you do all of the farming, but also combat and collecting and raising creatures. That is exactly the type of game that I just fall in love with. So, if this is some type of gameplay that interests you, I would definitely check out the Rune Factory series because, yeah, this is just totally my jam, and just the gameplay loop was so fun for me. I know there's a bunch of ports, I think, on the PC, but they kind of just look like the DS or 3DS games with, running at a high resolution, so kind of a little lazy, I think, but the core gameplay is still so fun. And unfortunately, I did get this one used, and I would take off this sticker, but it is inside the plastic, so they put the sticker on the paper. I'm like, why would you do that? Like, come on, people. You're killing me with that. So, yeah, one of my favorite games, and I have this ugly yellow sticker on it. But definitely a recommend from me. Super fun. Okay, before we get into the last pile, I wanted to highlight some of the DS games that came with big old peripherals that you would put into the GBA slot. I thought that was such a fascinating use of the technology that was available. So you would hold the DS on its side. You have the regular DS cartridge that would go in the game slot, and then the GBA slot would be filled with the guitar piece. I mean, how cool is that? Not the best way to play a Guitar Hero game, but I definitely had a moment where I just wanted to, get games that used the additional slot, because I thought that was such a cool idea. So here we have Guitar Hero on tour, Decades, and then we have, even more silly, we have Easy Piano, Play and Compose, that came with this comically large plastic piano, but of course there's not very many keys on it, so not really much you could do on it, but I still thought this was so cool. Like, what a bizarre idea to just have a physical piano that would plug into the GBA slot. So it was just kind of the silliness of it that made me want to get this. If you learned how to play the piano using Easy Piano, please let me know. Okay, moving into the final stack, we have some more big games coming up. First in this stack we have Animal Crossing Wild World, and this was another mind-blowing game to me when this came out. The idea that you could play Animal Crossing on the go, I mean, it didn't get any better than that. I mean, how could you argue against that? And they introduced this kind of rolling world mechanic, so as you would be walking through the environment, you would kind of see it turning around you. I thought that was a really clever way to show the world of Animal Crossing that was a little bit easier than the GameCube version, which was obviously a port of the N64 version, but I digress. And the touchscreen allowed for some really great quality of life improvements. There's probably not a huge reason to go back and play these old Animal Crossing games, but at the time, this was crazy. It was really fun to play this and just a little bit every day. Definitely a spectacle to me back then. Okay, very divisive game here coming up. This is The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass. So, if you're not familiar, the reason this is divisive is really just the control, because you control everything with the touchscreen. So, I never really liked controlling it this way, but I did get used to it. And, I was, and still am, so in love with Wind Waker that anything in this style of Wind Waker, I just had to get it. So, certainly not a perfect game in any sense of the word, but it was still a pretty cool experience if you could get over the touch screen controls. But, making notes like this was a really cool thing. Drawing a path for the boomerang, that was really cool. But if they could update this somehow to use regular controls and update the graphics, this could be a game that might gain some popularity. But yeah, let me know where you stood if you played this game. On the fence. I feel like it was a little bit of a love it or hate it, but, well, I shouldn't say that because I thought it was okay, so maybe not a love it or hate it, but certainly unique. Next up we have Pac-n-Roll. This was another unique title that controlled with the touchscreen, but unlike Zelda, this was a little bit more of a natural fit. So you would basically control it like that. This kind of gave me a little bit of like Kirby tilt and tumble vibes, but instead of motion, you were using the touchscreen. So I really liked the idea of this game, and I know there is a port of this game in a Namco museum collection, but I do think they cut a lot of the content out, which is kind of a bummer. So if you ever wanted to play kind of the full experience, I think you would have to track down a copy of this game. But yeah, super fun for me. I like the idea of controlling a character this way. I think a Kirby game also would have been really fun to control this game and, put Kirby in anything and it'd probably sell pretty well. So yeah, definitely a fun idea for Pac-n-Roll. Next up we have another interesting concept for the DS, which was Nintendogs, this is another game when I saw it, I just knew I had to have it, even though I really didn't play with it that long because the gameplay loop is not super deep. And they had different versions, and I actually have another version here that I got at a garage sale. I couldn't resist since it was, just a few bucks or something like that. But you can unlock all of the dogs in every version, so it's not like Pokemon or anything like that. So you don't need to buy all the versions to get all the dogs. I think it's just what you start with. So you can see the starting dogs are a little different in the two different versions. Do you have a favorite dog? My dog is a mix, so she doesn't fit in any of these categories. Okay, next up is the famous Brain Age. This was certainly I feel like this was just like a craze back on the DS era where you would do these, math puzzles or Sudoku to try to stay sharp. And it would give you a brain age. So depending on how well you did, you would get a younger brain. I think this is one of the only games that when we got a DS from my grandmother, we got her Brain Age. I'm not sure how many times she played it, but I feel like a lot of grandparents probably got gifted Brain Age. Okay. The penultimate game that we have here is Elite Beat Agents. Another very unique title that used the touchscreen, kind of like a Guitar Hero, but you're tapping and doing swooshes and stuff to the beat. Just kind of a very out there type of game and visual style. It feels like a game that typically wouldn't have come to the US, but we still were graced with this very bizarre game. Yes, we have Skater Boy. Excellent. Okay, and last up in my collection is the legendary Starfy. So I definitely went through a little bit of a phase where every kind of cutesy platformer, I just wanted to play them all, and this looked like a above average game. It also utilized the double screens well. Like, look at this. Like, come on, that's adorable. That's so cute. And this is a franchise I feel like has been a little bit lost to time. 3DS was such a great home for a lot of these games since it wasn't super expensive to develop for the DS, so you got a lot of different and fun ideas. The DS was such a great time for companies to experiment and do unusual and fun things. Do you have a favorite DS game? Like I said, Heart Gold and Soul Silver are probably the biggest games that I wish I had in my collection. Let's see, let's pick out some of my absolute favorite DS games. This has to be here for sure. These are probably some of my top 3 DS games. I certainly played this more than any other. I know I got my money's worth for Super Mario 64 DS, but the controls are a bit of a hurdle, I think. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and had fun looking back at some of these great games for the DS. And until the next one,